Absolutely massive news just dropped. This is breaking as of time of recording, and it is insane. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to open this video asking you to please share this content with as many people as possible. What I'm about to go into is incredibly bad, and right now, any threads on Reddit that talk about it, that link to these leaks or share videos about these leaks are all allegedly being deleted by moderators that have either links to Wizards of the Coast or are in contact with Wizards of the Coast, which I think are most of the D&D focused subreddits. So please do share this video. This channel isn't monetized yet. I'm not making any money off of this. I just think we really need to get the word out here about this to as many people as possible. Because as you'll see, this is absolutely awful, not only for content creators, but also for role players who like Dungeons and Dragons. Like, pretty apocalyptically awful. So everyone has been talking about the Dungeons and Dragons open game license, or the OGL, or the OGL, over the last few weeks. And if you don't know what the OGL is, and you're too afraid to ask, basically it is the Wizards of the Coast, owners of Dungeons and Dragons, saying, yes, you can make content explicitly for Dungeons and Dragons, and we will not sue. And this isn't really aimed at stuff like content on YouTube. I mean content with a capital C. Your supplement books, custom Dungeons and Dragons classes, custom setting books, or books filled with monster stats. The Open Games license lets you make and sell this type of content for money. It's an open license, a declaration to all RPG designers saying, release D&D content, and we will not sue you. It's essentially an open invitation to game designers and hobbyists, and let's be real, some real weirdos out there, to mod the game of Dungeons and Dragons, resulting in an insane amount of content for D&D. And lots of people really like that. They don't want that to go. There's a cottage industry that has sprung up around D&D because of this open game license. Jump on the website DriveThruRPG and you'll find billions of books that you can buy, all that provide content for Dungeons and Dragons. And Wizards have really benefited from this because it cements D&D's position as the biggest TTRPG around, and it gives players so much content to play in the D&D sandbox. Now, there's lots of money riding on the OGL for some groups. Critical Role, for example, make D&D books, and MCDM with Matt Covell, they make some moolah, and it's also a huge PR hit. People love it, which makes sense. People like playing D&D. The open game license lets more people sell products built within the D&D engine. And for a while there was a rumor that Hasbro Wizards would be dropping the OGL entirely, and people gnashed their teeth about it. So much so that Wizards of the Coast finally relented and actually made an announcement last week, trying to calm everyone down, laying out essentially the gist of their plans for the OGL in 2023. They didn't give us the actual text, but they gave us an idea of what we could expect. And at that time, they claimed that nothing would change. But there were some big gaps in the licensing that we saw, like virtual tabletop systems seemed to explicitly not be covered in any future OGL, presumably in anticipation for the one D&D virtual tabletop that is scheduled to come out. So that was bad enough. But then it got worse, because the new version of the OGL just got leaked, and it's really bad. So this was leaked to third-party industry veterans Stephen Glicker and Mark Seifter, and these are trustworthy sources and veterans in the industry. They revealed the leaks in a pretty lengthy live stream, which I have a link to in the description below. Suffice to say though, they don't seem to have any incentive to make any of this up, and what they showed us is terrifying. So the current OGL the creators are relying on grants a perpetual, royalty-free, non-exclusive license with Wizards of the Coast. This means that creators signed up to this can create content for D&D under the OGL forever without paying Wizards any money. This now seems to be changing under the new OGL. Firstly, the new OGL says that the previous OGL is terminated. So everyone building content using the old OGL, well, no. You're moving over. And the new one says that it can be terminated by Wizards for any reason so long as they give 30 days notice. That is a piddly amount of notice. My lease gives more notice than that. So right off the bat, that's a worse deal, because it makes clear that if you're a third party and you're creating content under this new OGL, then Wizards can cancel your license to do so at any time. meaning that you're gonna have to play ball with them no matter what. If Wizards take exception to your content or something that you say, then Wizards can kill your OGL products. This gives Wizards a lot of power in the relationship with smaller third parties. But even worse than that, the new OGL says that any creator who signs it, and remember that the previous OGL that is being relied upon by creators right now is going to be terminated, so any creators will have no choice but to do so if they want to keep making D&D content. The new OGL gives Wizards of the Coast an irrevocable, perpetual, royalty-free license to use the content created by the third party for any purpose. What does that mean? Basically, if a third party signs this new OGL with Wizards, Wizards can take their content and do anything they want with it. Forever. They can sell it for money, and the creator can never stop Wizards from doing so, even if Wizards then go on to terminate the OGL with that creator. So a creator could find themselves in a situation where they've made a D&D book, Wizards then take that content and publish it themselves, and they make a bunch of money. Wizards pay that third party no cash at all for the license, and could then even terminate that third party's access to the OGL, meaning that the third party can no longer sell the original content. In other words, Wizards could get people to do work for them unpaid, then claim the fruits of that work and cut out the original creator, preventing any monetary compensation just by terminating their agreement. That's a pretty Alice in Wonderland scenario, but it's totally possible and feasible for Wizards to do so under these new OGL rules. They're so weighted in favor of Wizards that it's absurd and clearly a terrible, terrible deal. And even if this isn't totally legal to do so, most third-party content creators couldn't afford to take Wizards to court in order to challenge it. Wizards are a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation with an army of lawyers. Most third-party content creators work from their living room. And this is extremely bad, to say the least. This language in the new OGL, by the way, if it's the new standard language, it will impact absolutely every single creator who is currently making content for Dungeons & Dragons. Patreon, supplement books, Critical Role, everybody. Not to mention that while this covers one D&D, in theory, Wizards could argue in a court that because D&D 5th edition is supposedly identical to 1 D&D, at least according to Wizards anyway, I don't think that's the case, then any creators who make content for 5th edition could be captured in this OGL as well. There is a reason that this OGL was leaked, because it is not feasible right now, in my opinion. This will kill the third-party industry that has sprung up around D&D. No sensible creator will accept these terms. This is so bad that I think Wizards will have to go back to the drawing board, because I can't see anyone accepting these terms. They're just too dangerous to accept as a content creator. But then, will those creators have any other choice? Will they even have the knowledge to challenge this? Being a game designer doesn't require anyone to have a great knowledge of contract law, and Wizards have all the power in this relationship. This is the type of decision making that comes from a monopoly in a market. D&D are by far the biggest brand in the TTRPG market, and Wizards are abusing this with the new OGL. This is a lesson of what happens when a hobby becomes solidified around a single brand. There is a sword of Damocles hanging over us all. This really sucks. I can't express how bad this is. I'm so glad that this got leaked, because I think that this has to change, and it's going to need a fan outcry in order to do so. I suspect that Wizards are relying on the fact that the OGL is kind of technical, and most casual players just don't care about it or know much about it. So as a community, I do think this needs to be called out. You need to share videos on this topic, and Wizards need to be convinced that this will result in them losing more money and consumer goodwill than implementing it will make them. And with Wizards maybe forcing subreddits to remove links to videos and topics on this subject, seriously, please do share this content. I'm not exaggerating here. This is possibly the worst it could be. This is so bad, I'm still kind of in awe. I've also linked to another creator in my description below. He's called The Rules Lawyer. He goes over the content of the alleged new OGL in greater detail, so check him out. And a big thanks to my patrons who enable me to create this content full time. Members of my Patreon get 40% off the Blue Sky Minis STL range for this month, as well as exclusive live streams and bonus videos, so check that out over on patreon.com/discoursminiatures. And a huge thanks to my patrons, especially Sonic Bread and Games Workshop. And linked here is a video on the 1 D&D virtual tabletop and why it's looking pretty bad for the future of Dungeons & Dragons. Bye-bye!